Hello and welcome everyone to today's session. I hope everyone finds themselves on the top left, otherwise you're still free to go. We will ask you to give feedback to the session at the end of the presentation. I already gave mine, and the feedback was the room is way too small for today's session. We highly appreciate that you came over. Before we will begin, we will actually show you a pretty cool data product. So here you go.
Everybody on the floor! This is a robbery! Don't move! Get down! Don't move! Get down and stay down! You move! The money! Money! Open the phone!
Mr. Johnson? Eric Johnson?
How does she know your name? I don't know.
Your mobile app pinged us when you walked in. Looks like you were on our website and thinking about buying a house.
You moving out, man? I need my space.
You may think you can't afford a new home, but we have some amazing new rates. I could text them to you.
Oh, those are fantastic.
And Mr. Davis?
Yeah, it's me.
Did you click on one of our emails about consolidating your student loans?
Maybe.
Oh, well, we can help you with that too.
Hey, what are you doing? This is a robbery, remember? We gotta go! Come on! Can I lock those rates in on the app?
Well, of course you can, sugar.
Thanks.
So as you can see, if you're having a good data product, that can save people from rob banks. No, but more seriously, it really makes an impact to your clients, to your partners, and to other stakeholders you might have. So in today's session, we will cover what it means to embed Tableau into your existing solution. We will talk about why that's actually a good idea. And then Tim will cover the part of how you actually do that. What are the questions you need to ask yourself prior to embed Tableau in order to make it a success? And we will then cover a couple of customer examples as well as a demo asset you'll be able to download at the very end. My name is Timo. I'm with Tableau since 5.5 years. I started as the 3rd employee at Tableau in Germany. And this is actually my 13th Tableau conference. And when I joined Tableau, I also created a blog called TableauFans.com, where I'm blogging about hacks, tutorials, and ideas what you can do with your data. And with me today is Tim Payne.
Thank you, Timo. So, as Timo said, my name is Tim Payne, and I work for the OEM and embedded team. It's a new team set up last year, specifically focusing on embedding Tableau. So this is actually the first time at TC conference this team's existed, so I'm really happy to be talking to you about this today. I've been in the industry for about 7 years, dealing with OEM and embedded solutions, and this is my first TC conference. So obviously, I've got a great mentor in Timo, who's done 13. So if it all goes really, really well, it's just that I'm really good. If it all goes terribly, then it's Timo's bad tuition. Before joining BI industry, I was a developer, and I did a lot of software developing, and you can see my GitHub up there. I have obscured it. For a reason, it's because I haven't separated out my old work with my new work. But if you want to know how to hack computer games, come and see me in the bar later, and I'll tell you where my GitHub is.
Thank you so much, Tim. So let's now, one thing to cover before we really jump into the content. There are 3 things we want you to take out of today's session. So one is you should understand what embedding means, and we will do that live in a couple of seconds. You should learn what you need to ask yourself prior to start with it. And that is a lot of content Tim will cover, and you can take the slides back home so that you can just checkmark all the things that you make sure that it's a success. And like I've been saying already, you will get access to a demo asset, which will give you a lot of examples you might want to share within your company, as well as it should kickstart your embedding journey. With that said, let's directly jump into what embedding really means. And I started with a demo, and actually, it's really the first demo I'm doing in an embedding context where I'm not allowed to code. But it's also the one which probably most people attended, so let's see how you will like it at the end, and please write your feedback at the very end and tell them that you want more code for sessions like that. So what I want to do is, this is just a sample application, which could be a web application you're offering to your clients. It could be an internal wiki, and it could also be a customer portal. And what I want to do is, I want to take a random Tableau visualization, and I want to embed that one into my existing portal. And the easiest and fastest way of doing that, and by the way, that is showing stock data, so we could be like any financial customer who wants to offer stock information to their clients. And the easiest way of embedding that is really going to the sharing button and just copy and pasting the embed code. And that is as easy as if you would embed a YouTube video on your own web page, right? So you just copy and paste that code, and it then shows you the very same thing you saw in Tableau, just in the context of your customer. But of course, that is not a really realistic scenario, right? It's just like how to put a viz into what's already there. You would normally do that with JavaScript or something similar, and you would also have like your own login screen up front. And that's stuff Tim will cover in more detail later on. So let me just log in to that application, which is giving me the very same stock data you have seen before. It just looks like it would be my own application. So it does have the look and feel of my application you're seeing at the very top. So we just give it another second, and you will see it later on. So that's always the thing with live demos, right? You've already heard that this morning. Nevertheless, you've seen like, okay, that's how easy you can put things into an existing content. Why should you do that? And there are many ways to answer that. So let me just tackle 3. So one is because the data economy is huge. And you already know that, and there are tons of material out there on the internet which are describing that from a research perspective, and you probably want to participate in that. So even if you're just taking a small little piece out of that chunk, that already helps you. Another way of looking at it would be to ask other clients, why did you already start to monetize your data by, for example, offering visuals to your clients or stakeholders? And if you're asking them, you get a list which looks similar to that one. So one is you want to optimize your existing product. So in the past, when you were having a banking app, you could just see each and every transaction. But nowadays, I want to know in which area do I spend most of my money, and questions like that. And it's also good for better understanding clients, right? I mean, your CRM tool, you want to know before you're going to a client, if you're a sales guy, what did this customer buy in the past? And what is that customer likely to buy in the future? Or generate new revenue streams. So even if you're in the hardware industry and you're selling hardware, you might connect that to any kind of database, and you can generate a new revenue stream by offering analytics next to your hardware. And attracting new clients or a market differentiator is also like 2 reasons you hear really often from other customers, because maybe some of the clients who are right now at a competitor don't get offered by analytics at all. But when you are offering it, I mean, the chance like rises that they switch to you if that is a smart solution. So no matter like why you are choosing to do so, by having you in the room, you're interested in doing that. And there are always 2 different ways of how you can actually like create a data product. You can either start from scratch and make your own data product, or you can buy an existing solution like Tableau and integrate that into your portal, whatever that means in your context. So if a customer would ask you to share some data with them, what is the number 1 tool you would share that data with them? Don't be shy. I heard it somewhere over there, so it's Excel. Right? It's still Excel. You put in some data from different tools, from different front-end tools, maybe from SAP, from whatever you have internally, and then you're creating that huge file, and maybe you combine it with other Excel files, and then you can give that data to the customer. I mean, oftentimes you do that for free. You shouldn't do so. You should offer that as an additional value. But yeah, oftentimes you don't do that via Excel, but you put in PowerPoint as a visualization engine on top of that, and then you're sending out a PDF file. That is a pretty common way, and I know from many discussions that this is happening in probably most of your organizations. But there are a couple of downsides of doing so. So one, it's a highly manual task. You're manually downloading different files, and then you're combining them. And I mean, that's where Tableau Prep and other ETL tools come into play and help you to automate that. A really big thing, it's static. So think about your customer is asking for all the orders you have done in the last couple of years, and now they want to look at that from like a region perspective. So each and every page now needs to be basically multiplied by the amount of regions or categories or whatever it is in your specific context. And that, of course, doesn't scale. So all the other points over here, I will not mention them. Most of you who are at the Tableau conference are already aware of the fact that this is a negative thing, so you can take it back home and talk about that with your internal colleagues. If that is not the right approach, some customers are choosing open source frameworks like D3JS as one open source example where you can code for free your own dashboards like you can see on the lower right. But again, there are a couple of things you just need to have in mind prior to starting with that. So one is it needs initial development effort. You need to have somebody with coding skills to create that, which is not a bad thing. Tim and myself, we love coding, and it's too bad that we're not allowed to do that today on stage. But even worse, you need to have programming expertise to make even small changes. So if you're thinking about changing the color for a certain client or changing the logo for a certain client, you oftentimes need to jump back into the code and make these adjustments. And again, other things like ongoing feature development. If now your clients do have access to 40 different dashboards, they don't want to access all of them every day. They just want to access it once a certain threshold got crossed, and then they want to have an email and click on it and dynamically see what's in there. And of course, software contains bugs, and you need to fix them, and you just need to have that in mind, that this will cost you money and time while offering that to your clients. So that's why many clients are choosing to buy an existing solution when it comes to selling data, selling analytics to their clients. And Questbrick is one of the examples. So on the left-hand side, again, just a list of all the things we've been mentioning. It doesn't even fit on the single page. And Questbrick is a software development company out of Cologne. And they've been coding their own visualizations in the past and offering that to their clients. And they're visualizing feedback data. So think about large DAX enterprise companies who are doing feedback surveys to 100,000 clients. And then the management will wants to already see, like, where is the journey going towards? What are most of the people liking or disliking in the company? And in the past, like I've been saying, they've been coding that, but one reason of going away from that was scalability. So they're having more than 100,000 users. In fact, I spoke to them yesterday. It's now 180,000-ish people who are accessing their analytics solution, where Tableau, like you can see on the lower right, is their front end of choice. Another thing which was really important to them was the time to market. So the client is asking a new question, which never got asked before, and it just takes them a couple of minutes to actually create a first draft, a first prototype of the dashboard, and it for that client in their portal. And then another big thing, like Francois has been mentioning this morning, monitoring. You want to know what your clients are looking at. What are the dashboards you want to offer like more in-depth details to, so that they can just like really get the nuggets out of their data. And then again, other things which are really important, including self-service, that clients can analyze their data by their own and not just the answers you thought they would have questions about. So with that said, we covered what it means to embed Tableau. We covered why you should actually do that. So Tim, I hand it over to you to talk about how to actually do that.
Thank you, Timo. So as you can kind of see, embedding Tableau is a pretty good idea. And let's do it. You know, how do we go about doing this? So the next section that I'm going to cover is the sort of considerations we need to think about. Now, in my day-to-day job, I speak to customers embarking on this journey every single day. And I've sort of boiled down the questions and the processes into sort of 4 areas that I'm going to sort of walk you through today. The first is actually the portal. What is the portal? What can it do? And let's try and sort of flesh out what the portal actually is. Then the Tableau skills needed. What specific Tableau things can we think about when we're embedding a solution rather than potentially hosting it internally or just coming from the Tableau server? We need to think about the architecture as well, so the sort of server-side things, but also the architecture of your business. So, you know, ordinarily we want to sort of make some money out of embedding Tableau, so let's have a look at sort of ways we can do that. And then finally, a hot topic about security. Obviously, if we're providing data to other people, the sort of security around that data to make sure that only the right people see the right data is vitally important. So what can Tableau do to actually do the security? First up, let's talk about the portal. Now, every time I hear the word portal, I'm always reminded of the game portal. And some of you may be familiar with the game. It's a puzzle game, and as you go through the game, you're promised a reward of cake. And as you get to the final level, you get to the final challenge, you're still promised cake, but you never get cake. And this is an internet meme now, the cake is a lie. You never actually get the cake. And I can sort of liken this to sort of an embedded project in Tableau. And a lot of the times we start an embedded project and we think it's really easy, and we go down there and we never quite succeed in actually getting a full portal solution out there. But actually, by using Tableau and looking at some of the things I'm going to show you now, you can get the cake. And with Tableau, the cake is definitely not a lie. And who doesn't like cake? So I'm going to switch to the demo that Timo left us with earlier. And now it's actually loaded. So we can actually see this is exactly the same stock data that Timo showed you in Tableau, but now it's actually formatted with the same look and feel of our entire web page. So we've got all the fun of Tableau. We can hover over things. We can have a look at the marks. And we've got that dashboard. Now, this is generally where sort of people start going, excellent, it's really easy. We can just take some Tableau. We can throw it in a website. Jobs are good, and yeah, everyone's happy. But actually, it goes much further than that. So we can actually interact with the portal into Tableau. So I'm going to show you an example of this. So this is the data. This is the data for data stock at the moment. But actually, I'm just going to change it, and let's have a look at the stock for another company. Let's have a look at the stock ticker for CRM, for example. So we've interacted using the HTML framework into our portal. And we can do things like parametering as well. So we can have a look at maybe, let's see where the stock was above or below $89, for example. And that then changes how we look at the data and how we can interact with it. So now we can see our tooltip shows us how many weeks that's above and below that baseline that we've just set. So really, when we think about the portal, it's not just pushing Tableau into a website. It's actually creating a user experience, and we can actually move from the HTML framework into Tableau. And we can go back again as well. So maybe we'd want to do something like export the data or print the screen or something like that, export to PowerPoint or PDF. So it's a two-way communication. So when we start down the portal route, don't just think it's Tableau in a website. Think of the whole thing together as an analytic solution. It's not that just one-way traffic of embedding Tableau in. So how do we best utilize our Tableau skills to actually do all of this? How do we sort of look at Tableau in a certain way, and how do we make the most out of what we know? Just going to wait for this next screen to load. It's really annoying, isn't it, when you see that? It's absolutely horrible when you see that spinning wheel. That was about 3 seconds, and people started to get a bit annoyed. Certainly, I know if I go to a website and it doesn't load within a couple of seconds, I'm wondering if the website's down. Is it just me? Is it down for just me.com? Have a look there. Or hitting F5, trying to refresh it. We want that information really quickly, and we need to get that information really quickly because we don't want people sitting there with buffering. When we're embedding data and we're externalizing data, the most important thing to think about is that customer experience. So we need to make it as good as possible for the end user. And there's a few ways of doing this to make sure that user experience is as good as it is. And obviously, we don't want this to happen. We don't want them to be waiting for their data. They'll make your company look bad. They'll think Tableau's a horrible product. So what can we do? So I'm going to show you an example in a couple of seconds of a typical dashboard that I see quite a lot in Tableau. And just in your mind, I'm going to ask you a question. How is the company doing? Just get a feel of the sales and the profitability of our company, and I'm going to show you a dashboard. So it's pretty busy. It's not great. It's not well designed. The information is there. You could probably walk up to the screen if you wanted to and go through a scroll bar and work out how our sales and our profit are doing. If we give this to an end user, an end customer who logs in and just wants the information, just a quick look, how's my company performing, it's not a good user experience. Now if I switch to something simple, how's our company doing with profit and sales? 2 seconds, even less, straight away you can see, actually, pretty poor. Sales are down over last year, profits down over last year. Now, I'm not suggesting that you use all of Tableau and create two visualizations like this. I mean, that's not really showing Tableau in the best light. The point is, we need to keep things simple for our end users. We need to make sure that they get that information as quickly as possible. I mean, we're all analysts here. You know, we all use Tableau. We can all create some really funky dashboards, and we can all create that really high-level detail of information that we have. When we roll it out internally, we always get the questions of, oh, I'm not quite sure how to use it, or we'll have a training session to how to look at the dashboard and what the various metrics mean. You don't have that luxury when we start to roll it out. One of the things which was picked up in the keynote this morning was about data literacy. If you find in your own companies that when you roll a dashboard out, people don't use it because it's a bit awkward, we can teach them. When we start to roll it out to thousands of people, we're not there, we can't teach them. We need to make this as simple and as clear as possible. So how do we deliver these expectations? So less is definitely more. We don't need to throw in everything all on one screen. Let's get some high-level metrics there, show them the overview of their data in a really simplistic form. Because the less we actually show on screen, the quicker Tableau's going to run. So it's a win-win, really. We get the information to our customers that they actually want, they can easily understand it and see it, and Tableau is actually going to perform better. The second thing is to think about the data volatility. Now, one of the great things about Tableau is we can connect to live data and we can see that instantaneous changes of our data. But quite often, actually, when we deliver this externally, we don't need to give them that row-level information straight away. They're not necessarily looking at that live data. I mean, there are use cases, obviously, where that is important, but really try and think about, do we need to offer that live data? Because if not, let's think about extracts, because extracts will start to run in that portal a lot quicker. So really sort of make sure that we think about this. And obviously, we can combine the two different sides, maybe a high-level KPI dashboard, run off some extracts, and then dive into that, into the live queries when we dig a little bit deeper. And the third one is about aggregation. Again, if we're not worried too much and we just want to show them an overview of the data, think about aggregating your data. Again, it makes Tableau perform far, far quicker. So if we think about this, we're trying to get some high-level KPIs straight away so you can understand the data really, really quickly. No matter how good your data comprehension is, less is more. Think about that data volatility. Just really make sure that you only need to show them what they're interested in, and aggregate to a sensible level to get that data out working as quickly as possible. So the next part is, how do we control the UX and UI, the look and feel? How does Tableau work? Now, ordinarily, if you've done the desktop training courses and sort of read any sort of blogs about Tableau, we always say use a fixed size dashboard. And that's because we hit the visual cache really quickly. So again, that makes it really performant. But actually, in modern responsive HTML5 web designs, a fixed approach can look a little bit jarring. So actually, maybe ditch the fixed size and go to automatic. Fill the screen, make things resize. Now, again, this might slow Tableau down, so it's a little bit counterintuitive to what I've just been saying. But if we apply those three things in the slide before, keep things simple, aggregate, and use extracts, we can afford the flexibility to maybe not hit that visual cache and make an automatic dashboard size. Again, it's all about that user experience. A nice, controlled user experience, which just sort of flows to whatever screen they're looking on, it'll be a far nicer approach. And the later versions of Tableau now do automatic sizing, so you can set up multiple device layouts as well to really help you achieve this. So it's a really good way of making sure that we don't know what devices customers are using. So really think about how the end user will actually look and feel and interact with this. I'm going to jump into another demo now to show you what I mean. So I'm just going to log in to this embedded page. So this is now an embedded portal. I have my framework here, and the internet is being very, very slow today, and so Tableau is not loading. But we can see that it's a fleshed out web portal. I can bring in my tweets, I can choose an email, and here's Tableau finally loading, and bless the internet today. What we can actually see now is this is not just a single Tableau dashboard, but we've actually got two visualizations loaded at the moment. that are actually separate sheets from Tableau. So this is actually an example of not necessarily using Tableau dashboards to design and make the layout, but actually using the CSS framework of your portal to do the layout in Tableau. Which means it's a much more flexible approach. It means actually you can start to leverage the skills of your UX UI developers and the portal developers to start thinking about everything to make sure that everything is cohesive together. And in this example here, we can start to interact with it. So let's filter by baby wear, for example. Everything changes, and we have that level of interactivity. And also by designing it with that automatic scaling, and by designing it in this method as well, if I resize the screen, everything flexes, everything changes to the same size of our actual portal. So it's a much cleaner user experience, a much nicer place to be than maybe a fixed size dashboard pushed in the corner, and if you're viewing it on a big screen, it looks a bit jarring. So these are a couple of ways that we can actually go about achieving that nice user experience. So how do we architect this from a Tableau point of view? What's the best way that we can actually develop this and get the content out? And this is a very typical approach I see. People are using Tableau internally and they want to externalize it. So we've got our Tableau server, we're supporting our internal people, and we've got some great data, and we know we need to share this with other people. So we've got all of our clients going, yeah, we want some data, we want some analytics. So the approach then is, excellent, we've already got Tableau. How do we get our people to come in to our Tableau server? My advice here is stop. Don't go down this approach. And I can see a few confused faces here, and often I get this look from customers as well. Why? What's wrong with that? And I'm going to run through a few examples of why potentially that's not the best way of doing things. So first is the network topology. If we start to allow customers into our internal network, we're then got to make Tableau publicly available, multiple firewalls. You speak to your network guys, they don't really like this approach. They can make it work, but it takes a lot of effort to actually get this network set up in a nice, secure way, which brings us on to the security question. So if we start to have internal servers exposed externally, then if there's a problem with the operating system that's not been patched, then there might be a way of people accessing from the inside to get into your internal systems through the Tableau portal. No fault of Tableau, the underlying operating system. So the security people don't really like this approach either. We then have the thought of authentication. Now, ordinarily, when we're dealing with Tableau internally, I guess 90% of the people I come across use Active Directory, which is fantastic, and it works brilliantly straight out the box. But again, do we really want to be adding external people to our internal Active Directory to make the authentication work? It's not really a clean way of doing it, and again, your network admins probably aren't going to be liking this approach too much. Scalability. Actually, if we want to start scaling our external solution out to thousands of people, if we've got the one server that's dealing with internal and external, it means we've got to scale at the same rate. So we might have a huge cluster for the external people, but actually maybe only 30 people are using it internally. It kind of doesn't make a lot of sense at that point. And finally, licensing. Actually, if you're starting to externalize content, come and speak to Tableau, speak to your account managers, because there are different ways we can license this approach. So that's kind of the things why we shouldn't really just allow people into our system in that way. So what would be a much better way of approaching this situation? So we've still got our internal Tableau servers. We can still develop our dashboards inside. But now we have a second Tableau server sitting outside, publicly available. We have our customers, and we allow them access to that particular server. So just to recap on a couple of those advantages, it means we could have Active Directory inside, for example, and a local identity store using any other authentication method on the outside. And it means we can start to scale our external solution completely independently of our internal solution, so we can really cope with that growth and drive that user adoption at a much better rate. So I guess the next question that I generally get when I show this slide is, well, that's great. I've got my development box internally where I'm developing content. How do I get it to my external server? And this is where Tableau's platform with its APIs really comes into its own. So we can export workbooks using the REST API. We can then modify the workbooks using the document API, maybe position to a production database from a test database, that sort of thing. And again, we can use our REST API to publish it back into the external portal. Now, we do this with the APIs because it just means that you can develop this solution to fit in with your own ways of working. And this may be the same solution as migrating from development to test to production. We can just use this workflow, code it how you want to fit into your way of working. But it's not just about architecture and the server side of things. It's actually how do we think about delivering this content to our business? And I guess the next few slides is really, how do we monetize our solution now we've got it? And just some sort of things to think about. And the first is that high-level dashboard. Maybe the first thing we actually want to do is get out some quick information for our customers at that high level. Just give them an overview of their data. And typically, this is what we see, and people start to give this away for free. It's like a dangling carrot, shall we say. Here's some analytics. You've got some overview information, but you haven't got the in-depth detail. So what we can actually do then is actually try to think about a way of monetizing this by actually saying, we've got a premium solution where we want to drill down a little bit further into the data and allow them more granular access to that data. And we can charge for that. We may even want to go down even to a higher level, give them the ability to do self-servicing, actually embed web editing, allow them to do self-service in the portal. So all these threes could be a value add for your portal. We don't have to give it all away at the same time. And finally, the big one, data downloads. I really don't like giving data downloads out. The data is probably your biggest asset. As soon as we start to put a data download button, we don't know what that client is actually doing. We don't know where they're going. So actually providing a high-level sort of KPI dashboard with some data downloads, it kind of then sort of negates our purpose of actually trying to keep people inside our system. So really think carefully if you want to offer data downloads, because that's your biggest asset. So charge a premium if you want to do data downloading. So finally, security. What do we need to think about with security? And I sort of think about this as going into a nightclub. If your name's not down, you're not coming in. This was a very similar chap to the nightclub bouncer I saw last night, actually. Really big. What does it mean? So we have two things to think about with security. We have authorization and authentication. And these two are subtly different. So the authentication is, am I allowed in the club? The bouncer is there. Can I get in? Am I allowed in at all? And this is where we can really start to think about different ways of authenticating our systems. Ordinarily nightclubs hire in a company to do their door policy. And that's just the same with the authentication we see in the web portals, which we'll come on to a few methods a little bit later. Once we're allowed in the club, once we've been authorized to come into the club, we then go, what can we actually do in the club? Have we got access to the VIP area? Are we allowed to use the second floor? And that's where Tableau really controls it. So all of that great permission structure in Tableau still exists when we start to embed it as well. So a combination of these two things can really sort of make sure that everything is completely secure. And if I cast my mind back to when I was a software developer, if someone said to me, you need to design some sort of web solution with some data, and you need to make sure that data is really secure and the right people are getting to it, that's where the web designers and the web developers really start to panic that actually the responsibility is on them. But actually with this, we can shift all of that responsibility to Tableau, which makes the developers really, really happy. So the methods of authentication we can use with Tableau, you'll probably be familiar with quite a few of these. I guess in 90% of situations, we use web ticketing. And this can just sit on whatever authentication mechanism you have in your existing portal. It doesn't matter what you're using, we can come on the back of that. The next two, SAML and OpenID, we're starting to see a lot more people actually using this. So they sort of group together, we can sign into one sort of, one portal, Okta, for example, and we have access to a whole host of applications, of which Tableau may be one of those. So we can leverage those as well. When we sort of externalize our content, Windows authentication and Kerberos isn't something we see. But actually, if you're starting to think about authentication, how do we get this sort of single sign-on approach, then web ticketing is really the way forward. What happens when we have multiple clients all accessing? So we have completely different clients. We want to make sure they're completely siloed from each other. Do we have to have multiple Tableau servers, one server for each client? Of course not. We have one Tableau server, and we separate our Tableau server into multiple sites. And sites are a natural way of segregating many, many different clients. It's almost like multi-tenancy of Tableau out the box. So with one Tableau server, we can support multiple clients. All of these different sites have their own users, have their own permissioning. You can set them up exactly how you'd want to. So I'm going to jump into a quick demo now, because it's not just about sites we're worried about, but actually maybe someone from the blue site has many different categories of user. Maybe we have someone who's a manager, for example, who needs to see a lot of data, but someone who's a little bit more junior, for example, potentially not seeing all of that data. So we can actually do row-level security with Tableau as well. So I'm just going to switch over to 2 websites here. It's exactly the same website, running on both. On the left-hand side, I'm going to log in as Bob, and on the right-hand side, I'm going to log in as Alice. So if I just log in to Bob, clearly the internet is down. Let me just try with Alice and see how we're going there. Excellent. Whilst Alice is loading, I'll just put Bob.
Let me retype it in because it's German keyboard.
For whatever reason, it's a live demo, and of course, being pre-sales, this is what we come across all the time. But what you will see is Alice had access to Germany data, and Bob had access to an entire European-wide set of data. Excellent. Thank you very much, Timo. Ta-da! Finally, he's loaded. So yeah, we can see it's exactly the same dashboard, exactly the same data, but actually we've restricted that data level, the row level security of who's actually logged into that system. So that's how we deliver our solution, those 4 points to consider. The portal, it's not just a one-way Tableau dashboard, throw it in there and forget about it. Actually, it's a two-way communication with your web application and Tableau. How do we think about Tableau? Think about how we make sure that it's successful for our customers to drive that user adoption. How do we architect for success, both from a server-side of point of view and also maybe the monetization side of this as well? And finally, leveraging security to make sure only those people who actually want the data can actually see that data. And it's a team effort. It's not just Tableau. So as a Tableau user, we're all Tableau users here, it's not just for us. It's not just saying, you now need to learn how to code to develop your portals. It's a complete team effort. So these are the sort of 5 people that I speak to when we sort of start down an embedded project. First is obviously the portal developer. Generally, that's the web coder who's actually developing your external content already. They need to understand what we're doing with Tableau to understand how they can best leverage the interactivity with Tableau and your existing portal. Let's bring in the UX and UI designers. We want to make it a completely harmonious place to be. We don't want a jarring Tableau dashboard designed completely differently to how our portal looks. So let's bring the UX UI designers in here, early stages as well. And obviously the Tableau developer. Let's make sure we get the right data, the best visualizations, how we can actually give that data access. And get these 3 people talking to each other. Because ordinarily, the Tableau developers probably never speak to the web developers. But actually, in a project like this, we really need to get this team development. But it's not just the techie side of things either. We're selling this solution, so there's probably going to be some sort of customer success team, which is vitally important to get the feedback from those end users who are using it. What other features would they like to see in the portal? What data would they like to access? And of course, involves sales as well. They're going out selling this solution. It's an embedded opportunity, so we need to get the salespeople involved. And there's a whole host of other people around here, exec sponsors, that sort of thing. So really think about when you're developing a portal, it's a team effort. And if you bring all of that into place, you will definitely get the cake. Timo, over to you.
Thank you. So let's jump to the last chapter. And I want to share 2 more customer scenarios. And the first one is from Siemens. And I think I don't need to introduce Siemens in Berlin. And Siemens has got a department called Siemens MindSphere. And for those of you who don't know what it is, it's basically their IoT platform. It collects data from end consumer products like dishwashers and washing machines, as well as sensor data from really large production plants where you have millions of data points within a single second. And 2 years back, they reached out to us to evaluate their analytics tool of choice, which they wanted to embed into their IoT platform. And it's really a typical thing that companies like that, like large companies like Siemens, are evaluating software by sending out huge RFIs, huge questionnaires, which then vendors fill out to figure out the theoretical best tool for their use case. And I'm doing software evaluation since 10 years. And my general learning from that is it's not the best idea to really get the best tool for your clients. So instead of like filling out that huge questionnaire, we've been sitting together and we've been creating a first prototype. And that looked something like what you can see here. So again, it's machine data. It was a company which is selling machines, and on top of that, they want to offer analytics via the IoT platform of Siemens. And the thing is, now Siemens has been able to talk to that client. Is that of value for you, for your clients? And if not, I mean, you could just say, okay, well, then it's not the right tool, but you figure that out in just a couple of hours rather than making a huge tender up for a couple of weeks. But if that's of value to your clients, you can easily take that and bring that to the next level just visually, like you have seen in the very first example with the stock data, and really sell that information. So this is one of the key concepts I want you to take out of today's session. Like once you're evaluating like how to sell data, maybe Tableau is the right tool for it to put it into your existing portal, download Tableau, create first prototypes, and discuss that with your clients. Is that of value to some of your key clients? If so, bring it to the next level and then integrate it. And you have got a list of things you need to consider from Tim, as well as there's a deep dive session for those of you who are interested in seeing how you technically integrate that. Just search for JavaScript deep dive on your mobile app, and a colleague of us will show you how to actually do that. And you will code on a hands-on session with them. One last example I want to make is from a former startup out of Berlin called MyNotes. And what MyNotes is really producing ever since is these beacon scanners. And what is a beacon? A beacon is in every smartphone nowadays. And it acts similar to a Bluetooth device. It just consumes less data, and it just has a unique ID on top of that. So whenever you're passing by such a beacon scanner, it will just save that information of that unique ID and a timestamp in a huge data lake. So what can you do about it? For which industry does that sound interesting? Retail, thank you. So for retail, that is of course highly interesting, because then you can measure in which area of my store do most people spend their time. But not just that, it's also very interesting if that's the entrance of my shop, like how many times did people just walk by, never came in, until there's a certain advertisement which attracted me and I wanted to get in. And I mean, with that, you can plan like how to set up your store way better. And I've been saying it's a former startup because it got acquired by Telefonica, and there are also like interesting like detailed information on our webpage if you're interested in that. And what they've been doing is, again, similar to the very first stock example. This is native Tableau. So just to see where in the store do people spend most of their time. And then again, the whole header part can then be your portal, and you can like navigate or filter from that. Okay, so these were two more examples. Now I give you access to the demo asset, which you can just take a picture of in order to get the URL, but you will get the overall presentation at the end as well, which looks like that. And you will see the slide in a second again, if you didn't take a picture yet. So this is basically a Tableau site you can import into your environment. You need to have server version 2018.3. That's at least necessary. And then you will, on the one hand side, get access to like some really cool examples from Tableau Public. And some of them really look more like infographics rather than Tableau visualizations. And if you're interested in then like figuring out how did people like created it, because that's, like you can see, an interactive Tableau visualization created without any JavaScript or so on and so forth, just normal Tableau desktop, You can just download it and reverse engineer it. With that example, you get also access to these three things. So one is like the embedding example from the very beginning with the stock price. And the point I wanted to make with that is really turn the basic Tableau visualization into the look and feel you need in order that you don't see its Tableau, if you want. Siemens MindSphere, for example, they chose the different approach. So many people in their community asked to use Tableau for that, so they left the Tableau icon there so that everybody could see, yes, just analyze it with Tableau directly within the portal with WebEdit. You also get access to some write-back examples. So there are extensions you might want to test to directly write back data from a dashboard to an underlying database, which is part of the asset I deliver. And then last but not least, a Tableau photo booth, which can be used, for example, for Tableau days, where you can basically create a picture of yourself. So that's me on the left-hand side. And then whatever I'm typing in here, I can submit to the dashboard here. And once I click on a certain like country or region or whatever like your context is, this will then show up all the people in that particular region, and you can look for them. So this is just another really cool example just to show you, give you some inspiration of what's possible. And all of that can be downloaded here. There's a YouTube installation link, as well as the zip file, which contains all of the things you need. So feel free to download it, and feel free to share it with your clients or just internally for inspiration. Cool. With that said, we already covered what it means to embed Tableau. We also covered why you should actually do that. We talked about what are the things you need to consider in order to do so, and we shared some customer examples as well as the demo asset.
So now you will actually understand what embedding means, what it can actually look like. We've looked at how we actually need to know what to ask ourselves in order to embed Tableau. And if you can't remember, you know where to get those demo assets for, and you know where to find it. And share one example of that demo asset with a colleague. Let other people know what you've learned today and how straightforward this can actually be getting started down this embedded route.
With that said, if you like the session, please give us feedback and put in some notes. There are internal prizes to win for the best session, for the best speakers, so on and so forth. If you didn't like the session, feel free to skip that part. With that said, thank you for your patience, and we're now ready for questions. Thank you.